If you're good, Anne, like let's kick it off here. Thank you, of course, for being here, for sharing your time with us today and your experience. And like in our other episodes, and I'm glad you've seen a couple of them, I always like to start by asking people just, a bit about how you've gotten to where you are today, because I've really found this helps the job seekers watching this recognize there are so many different ways to get to some of their goals. So if you don't mind, what are some of the stops you've made along the way? How have you kind of gotten to the position you're in today at Blueprint?
Thanks for asking that, Imran. I really appreciate it. Well, my story is certainly not cut and dry. It has had its ups and downs and dips. So I started out doing an undergrad in drama,
Oh,
and yeah, crazy, right? Well, it's crazy now that I think about it. But I loved theater. It was so much fun. I just wanted to just wanted to have fun, I was so young, and so I studied for 4 years. I thought this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I
huh.
don't care what people tell me to do. And so I finished up with my undergrad and I auditioned for four different schools, and I had all of my eggs in one basket. Because you need to be in the arts, you really have to put your 110% into it, and even more if that's possible, because otherwise you're sunk. So I did that, and one by one I was getting these rejection letters. I don't like using rejection, but because it's the theater world and the arts, they are rejection letters. I
Right.
was I was completely devastated. So I thought, well, if I can't be a performer, I will work in admin and theater. Close enough so that I can use this degree somehow. I worked in admin and theater and I hated it. I hated it because I'm not naturally a detail oriented person. I love the environment. I mean, it was fun, but it was very challenging. And I learned how to become detail oriented, but it was really rough. And, my first few jobs, I was let go of. Like it was a really hard lesson. But finally I got good at it. And then at that point I realized I'm good at this, but I'm still completely miserable doing this. So I was
Fair enough. Yeah. It's funny how you can get good at something but still not enjoy it. I totally know what you mean.
yeah, and I'm sure that people, Imran, who and are in jobs that they're adequate at, they do fine with, but they're very unhappy. But they make a payoff, the salary, the benefits versus their own enjoyment of the job. And I realize it also has to do with where you are in your life. Like for example, if you have dependents, then you don't have the luxury, quote unquote, to really do things that you're passionate about, that you love. It's more about focusing on the salary and benefits because you have a lot on your back. But I was in a very fortunate position in that I was, there I didn't have any dependents. I was on my own, and I had a lot of flexibility. So I was working in a theater job and admin job, and I've shared this quote before, and it's true. So I was doing fine, and then we had this new manager, and I guess she was trying to exert her power. I mean, sometimes this happens when new managers get hired, and I completed a task where we had a very small office. So just picture our office was so small, Imran, that literally we were sharing a wall, and there was like a window that I could see her in. So I'm just setting this up for you.
Yes, I can
So
picture it.
yeah. And so I was working with this newly hired manager, and I completed this task. And at this point, again, I was pretty okay at my job. And
Right.
then I went into my cubby, and there was a note in there from my manager, who again, literally sharing a window with. And she
Oh,
said, yeah, she said, "Dear Anne, thank you for completing this task. A monkey could have done a better job than you." Can you believe that, Imran?
verbatim?
I swear to God, it was in writing. I wish I were making this up, but
Oh,
this is awful.
that is awful. Yeah, that is extremely rude. I can't believe that in a workplace to do something like that.
Yeah, it is pretty awful. So
in any
I've
case,
never
yeah, that's
exactly.
sorry you had to go through that. And geez.
Thank you. I mean, and I'm sharing this story now because I mean, obviously there's a happy ending, but just to let people know that I've been through some really challenging times myself, and I've had to do some deep, diving into reassessing my career and also making the choice to leave. So I've never been in this situation where I've been treated like that. And at that point, I literally just walked out. Like I've never done that before in Ran. I could not even face this person. So I
Well,
picked up my things and left.
yeah, wow, that's a great lesson to share. I think, yeah, you're not alone in dealing with a difficult workplace like that, and I think that's the right answer. That's not the kind of place you want to be. Thank you for sharing that, Ann. And what did you do next? What happened?
Thanks. So I first of all, I applied for EI, and I got it. This is actually important for folks to know, practicality speaking, because as you know, you would get employment insurance if you get laid off. I wasn't laid off, I was let go of, but I proved to the amazing folks at Service Canada that I had no choice but to leave because of the emotional challenge I was faced against. And I think I don't know if I kept that. No, I might have crumpled it up, but I documented everything that this manager had said to me. And it took a bit of time. I think it took about a month or so to actually get the documents in order, to get times and dates. I actually requested that one of my colleagues vouch on my behalf, but he was too afraid to. He didn't want to, but I tried. It's just how it is, right? Like people, when it comes down to it, of course you want to keep your job, even though he knew about this manager. So anyway, I was
Yeah,
successful. I was successful. I got my employment insurance. So please, for everyone, I think you should know out there that if you're ever in a horrible situation like this, which I hope it happens to no one, but if you have no choice but to leave because you're dealing with, I mean, I know this sounds like a strong word, Imran, abusive employers, and you can prove to the folks at Service Canada that you had no choice but to leave, you can still get your EI. So and if you're not sure about that, reach out to professionals like myself. Also, there are lots of other agencies that can help you with some advice. So anyway, I walked out, got my EI, had to look and reevaluate my career. And I remember talking to my dad, and he's like, "Well, think about what you've enjoyed over the years." And I thought, well, I've enjoyed volunteering in the nonprofit sector, and so I actually reached out to a transitional counselor, and she suggested that I do these things called, well, not, she didn't even label them. She said, what do you want to do? Community work of some kind. And she actually discouraged me. She's like, um, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yes, because I really enjoyed it and I seem to be good at it. And I really think I can contribute. And she was like, hmm. And she said, well, let me connect you with a community worker who can help you to find out more and, to
oh,
decide, yeah, like an information trivia, but it wasn't
yeah,
called that, right? And so I remember going into this office of this amazing, amazing professional, and he was so kind. And he said, community work, it's so amazing. You feel so rewarded, but 90% of the time, you're not going to see the results and it's very stressful, but it's so rewarding. And I really appreciate it. And then it was so funny. I get you another true story. It's a nice story. It's not, some horrible story. It's a nice story. So then he said, and it's important because of the stress that you're going to experience in the community service sector to have a hobby. And so he took out this beautiful blue dress. It's a joke. He showed it to me. It was gorgeous. He said, so my hobby is dressmaking. Look at this dress. It's beautiful. And I said, wow, that is beautiful. I forgot his name because it was so long ago. But and he said, I'm really proud of it. And because I'm able to really engage myself in hobbies, it's a true story. It's a way for me to handle the stress.
wow. Well, that you couldn't get more honest insight into what the actual job is like. That's a very unusual scenario, but how was it helpful? It sounds like it was very helpful.
It was, and it's funny because, in pivoting into the community services sector, the social service sector, I always think about that sector, that experience with that gentleman, because as you know, in the social service sector, it's true, burnout is huge, and
Yeah.
you're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and just things that you cannot change, and there's a lot of people transition out of that area industry because it's so stressful. But it is so important to really find strategies to deal with that stress. And a good one is, just like that gentleman I was speaking to years ago, really invest in something that has nothing to do with work, that's fun, that brings satisfaction, that's just an escape, like a positive escape. um so that was amazing. So anyway, long story short, I went back to college. I did 2-year diploma at George Brown College. And I'll show another quick story. The way I got into employment services is
Yeah.
this is actually, I think this is funny. So I knew I was in the right place. I was enjoying my studies. I was like, this is great. I love this. This is fun. Like, I'm very into social justice. I just didn't have a label for it. I love volunteering. And so it was time to find a field placement. So important, right, Imran?
Oh, big time. Yeah. Really valuable to take advantage of if you have the opportunity.
Yes. And so my field placement coordinator, again, just these like amazing people I've met over the years. At the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I knew I was in the right place, like I said, but I didn't know my area of specialty. So she knew about my background as a drama major. And, and she looked at me and she said, employment services. That's it. And so
Oh, wow. Just read you. That's crazy.
anyway, she was absolutely right, because I mean, obviously I don't have time to get into it, but over the years I accumulated quite the resume of eclectic jobs that have actually guided me in my work today. So I went into that industry. I fell in love with it, and it was the perfect fit. And I started working in the nonprofit sector as an employment counselor with Tropicana. They're an amazing employment Ontario agency for anyone who's interested. Although they're super busy right now, but it was a really great stepping stone. And then I moved into, various other agencies. I think, Imran, I'd worked for like 4 different agencies. So a lot, like Employment Ontario, City of Toronto. And I was like, you know what, Imran, this is getting boring. Not you, but I'm just saying that you're not getting
Yeah,
bored.
yeah.
You're
But
interested.
that's again kind of honest, right? Like as you actually had a chance to try it, you have to be honest with yourself and no, continue. That's fair. Totally fair.
So I thought resumes. If I see another resume, Imran, I swear to God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I thought I've got to pivot. And then I was like, and my partner, he'd been working with social workers who were providing clinical counseling. He said, Anne, the real money is doing clinical counseling. Get your BSW, do your MSW, you're set. You hardly have to work. you just have to you just have to get this thing. You start your own business, you're set. I was like, you know what, partner? I'm not going to share his name. His name is Chris. It's a very generic name, so I can share that. You know what, Chris? You're right. I love school. So I went back, I did a BSW, and then I moved on to an MSW. I did it part-time while working in the social service sector and employment services. It took me 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I had 2 children towards the end during my MSW. And so if people tell you, if anyone out there, like, you can't do it, you're thinking about going back to school, oh, you have kids, oh, you have other people you're taking care of, or just it's too expensive. I realize you have to be realistic, Imran, but I honestly believe if there's something you really want to do, you can do it. Like, you will find a way to do it. And so I did it. I did it part-time. And with the kids, I mean, well, I had these babies running around. I found it very balancing to go to school, because otherwise you go cuckoo, right? Like, I don't know if you can imagine, right? But if you're dealing with, I mean, I love the kids, but it's like dealing with all this baby stuff all the time. Some people are good at it, but intellectually, I was not feeling stimulated. So finished my MSW, and then I decided, Imran, I would decide, okay, after all this, I don't want to be a clinical counselor, because this is just, this is like, it's amazing work. And I did my field placements focusing on clinical counseling. So I do have that background, which informs my work. But I thought, I just I can't do this. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do? Oh gosh. And I thought, well, post-secondary, that's the gig to have. Because when I was working in EO, a lot of the folks I was working with, they were like, oh, post-secondary. Like they were, it
That's a
was
good
like,
thing.
they were like, oh, this impossible thing to reach. And I've actually shared this in my post that, the folks that I was working with, they were so wonderful, but they were basically were saying, it's impossible to get a job in post-secondary coming from, EO. But it fueled me so to prove them wrong. So
That does help.
I
I know what you mean.
right? Like, so if people say to you, Imran, and I appreciate your connection here. If people say to you, you can't do it, it's impossible, you can either take it to heart and say, you know what, you're right, like this is impossible. I can't, become join the NBA. I'm too short. I'm too old. I mean, really, they start training at a very young age. Like this, okay, I understand. But but there are things that if there are things that you really want to do, there are somewhat tangible, and
Yeah.
and there's some kind of, it's realistic. You can use those voices, those that feedback to actually, like, motivate you to say, you know what, you're wrong, I can do it, and I will show you. And that, can put a fire under your belly. And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people there in industries like the arts, who tell you, don't waste your time being a musician,
Oh
it's
yeah.
too competitive, right? Open up your own music store, right? Like, do something practical, teach. You don't become a writer. There's so many writers out there, just teach. And it's like, no, 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 no. So anyway, it was my fuel, I guess, those people that told me. So I reached out to people that I knew over the years. I guess my boss, kind of full circle here, Imran.
Huh. Well, that's kind of you kind of you've built a massive network over this time. So it makes a lot of sense that you'd have people to reach out to. So your boss from one of the previous roles was able to help in some way?
Yes. But the beauty of it is, it was my first boss at Tropicana, the very first person that
Oh,
hired me for my very first employment counselor role. That was who I reached out to.
oh my goodness, that is full circle right there. And they were able to help make introductions and help you prepare and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and it kind of snowballed from there. And then this position at the University of Toronto, at Blueprint Career Services. So I've been here over a year. I was actually at Centennial working with that boss from
Oh,
Tropicana.
wow. Okay.
It's crazy, right? Uh,
That is.
anyway, she was amazing and I loved it there, and it was enjoyable. But the location wasn't ideal because I had to go on the highway. And so U of T reached out to me and they said, I think you'd be a good fit for this job, or do you want to apply? And this was when my LinkedIn profile was less than stellar. It's not what it is today. And I thought, oh, U of T. First of all, I thought, is this a joke? Is this someone trying to scam me?
Fair enough, but amazing that it wasn't. That's incredible. And just by again having a presence on LinkedIn and making those connections. So go on. So then they reached out. Yeah.
Yeah. So they reached out. I figured out, okay, these people are actually legit. What the heck is going on here? Okay. So I chatted with this amazing recruiter. She was so kind. And, I said, and again, full circle, Imran, I said, well, yeah, this job looks good. And I'm not sure what, I guess, I'll apply since you're encouraging me to do it. And they said, but I don't know if I should put my drama degree. It's kind of useless. And she said, no, she said, this is what makes you special and unique. And there are so many transferable skills that you can use that will really help you in this role. And I thought, wow. And so, again, another
Yeah,
sage
kinda.
wisdom. It is important though, because I think a lot of folks don't realize that, a lot of folks are like me out there who might have had a degree that they feel like is not relevant to what they're doing, or they're pivoting in some way. But it's that special background, the education experience that can make you really stand out. Now, obviously, you're not going to focus on it, but use those transferable skills, and that's what I did. So I submit my application, and here I am. I got hired, and I'm at U of T, and it's a great job.
Oh my goodness, and this is why I'm gonna ask this question every time, 'cause there's no way I could have guessed that that was your story along the way. It's always so interesting to hear what, and in this case, what you've been through. It gives so much context to the advice you can provide as well. And I had mentioned this before we kind of started recording today, but we're definitely gonna have to have you back for a second episode because, um, Funny enough, I did a ton of drama and theater in high school and early on. I love that world, and I have found the same. I have found that that skill set has really helped in so many different areas of my career. And I think it doesn't have to be drama for people watching. It can be something you did early on that ends up helping you in these other areas along the way. And it's funny that that's your background because I was actually speaking to a friend of mine who has a drama background as well. And they're kind of at the phase of their career now where they're trying to kind of figure out what do they want to do next and where do they want to go? And they've done a lot of work in the arts. But they're kind of at this pivotal point now where I think they're doing some of the thinking you've done along the way. Um, and I'm actually curious now about the work that you're doing at Blueprint. Is it about helping people kind of map out the next phase of their career, or what does the work you do involve now?
Yes, yes, and thanks for asking that, Imran. So it is. So it is really challenging. I mean, I think I made it sound kind of easy, but it is challenging to figure out what you'd like to do next because there are so many things to consider. And I'm actually not of the school of thought that follow your passion, do what you love the most. Well, honestly, I love watching Netflix and eating potato chips. And actually, I did do a job like that. I was with Alliance Atlantis, and I got to watch videos. And I think I was probably allowed to eat potato chips if I wanted to. But anyway, it's hard to find a career doing that. So I,
It's
I would
true. Fair
so
point.
this thing like find your passion. It's like it sounds great and rah rah rah. And some people do find work that where they can pursue their passion, but certainly at Blueprint Career Services, our offerings are about helping people with deciding what to do next through very specific methodologies. So, I am a certified Design Your Life coach. So, if anyone knows about the Design Your Life series, it's out of Stanford University. And their best-selling series, Design Your Life. There's tons of stuff on YouTube. Again, you can check out their books, buy them from Amazon, or get them out of the library. But it's a really wonderful systematic approach that I facilitate. So I do a three-part workshop using the Design Your Life approach, which helps you to identify what you potentially like to do, identify maybe three potential areas by engaging in some exercises, narrowing it down, and then the next steps in order to decide whether or not this is something that you'd like to do. Along with that, we facilitate the Clifton Strengths Workshop. And if anyone is aware of Clifton Strengths, it's based off of positive psychology. It's called Clifton Strengths, and it's an assessment that identifies your top 34 themes. But in the actual workshop, we have access to your top 5 themes. Then we discuss the science behind it and how you can utilize them. So once you know your top strengths, so things that you're naturally good at, things that you enjoy, it suggests that you focus on these things, right? And
Ah,
so by doing that, it might change your direction in terms of like the career that you're going into. Like, for example, Imran, my top theme is learner. And
hmm.
it it's pretty much how it sounds, what it is. And folks who are learners thrive in learning new information and like from what I've talked about, because it took me a while to understand this, because when I saw learner I thought, oh, it's someone who likes to keep their nose in the books all the time and spends hours at the library. And I love libraries and books, but I realize I'm a learner in that I love experiencing new
I
things and trying things out, trying things, but I also love the power of education and educational environments and using education as a way to help people further their career and help transition. And so with that, it's very affirming for me, Imran. Like I'm in the right place. I'm in post-secondary. This is perfect. And also I'm in the right career, right? Like,
Yeah, that really lines up. I see what you mean. That's an interesting methodology and one that's yeah worth kind of spreading the word around because I do think people can end up in a scenario like you talked about earlier where they get good at something, but it's actually draining and depleting. It's not something they enjoy, even though they're good at it. So it's very helpful sounding to kind of identify the things that you enjoy, even if you maybe aren't as good at them yet. I feel like that's kind of where you maybe would end up focusing, right? Is, hey, I really enjoy this. Maybe this is the thing to get better at. So that's really a helpful insight, man. That's an interesting one to know. And it's good to know that, folks can reach out to a service like yours, like Blueprint, to have help as they go through that process and figure out how to answer those questions.
Yeah, and if I can thank you for that. And if I can just add, and we were having this conversation before, but as we experience the current labor market, which is tough on everyone. Like there's no such thing as a stable job, unfortunately. And as people are experiencing job loss and the increased competition out there, I mean, it can take a really negative toll on your self-esteem because then you start to question yourself. I know that's what happened to me as I've navigated through my career and things haven't worked out. With that job I shared with you, I was like, oh my
Hey,
gosh, what's wrong with me? Like, I must be a horrible worker when now I look back and I think this was really someone who was trying to assert their authority and try and make a name for themselves. I don't agree with what they did, but this is what they did. So anyway, I know that with when you're dealing with this really challenging labor market and you're trying so hard to get a job and you're applying to hundreds of positions, it can really take a toll on your self-esteem and your self-worth. And unfortunately, Imran, as we know, I mean, I wish this wasn't the case, and I'm trying to change my mind, my mindset, my mind frame. So much of our self-worth and our identity is tied into employment. And so if you're unemployed, right? If you're unemployed or if you got laid off, it takes a toll, a negative toll on your self-esteem. So doing something like Clifton Strengths is such a huge self-esteem booster because it identifies, well, this is not about your job, like, right? Your paid job or your career. What are you naturally good at? These are things that will stay with you no matter what. And it's incredible what it can do for you and it lifts you up. And so by having that confidence, like that true confidence, not the, just fake it till you make it, which I realize has some benefits, but like the forced, like, sure, I feel great. We're really
yeah.
sad and that has a place too, but just like that real genuine understanding and self how boost in the self confidence that can help you confidently sit in front of employers and interview with them and network, and they will see the best of you because you're able to effectively communicate that because you believe in it and you're able to recognize it. So there's so many ways that Clifton Strengths can help you, and I'm just so honored to be with University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies, Blueprint Career Services. That's a mouthful. But I'm so proud because we really are innovative in our approach. And, we were talking about this too, that
Yeah.
a lot of folks think that it's about resumes and about cover letters. And yes, it used to be totally like when I first was looking for work. I, I mean, it was pretty easy. You just apply to a job online, use your resume. You don't really need to know anyone. I mean, maybe for certain positions, but it was pretty easy. I think unfortunately a lot of folks are still stuck in that mindset, but we know it's not like that. It's about making connections. And if you have the language and the self-confidence and the self-awareness as you navigate and as you connect with people, it's going to get to where you need to be eventually, whatever that looks like.
No, it makes a lot of sense because you're approaching it with this kind of excitement and genuine interest as well, after recognizing some of those things. So, uh, really, really helpful insights, Anne. And I know we've gone over the time I asked you for today. So, I do want to thank you for sharing the story, of your journey. I think there were so many stops along the way that people are going to recognize in their own journey and just draw some strength from, draw reassurance from the fact that, you found a way to navigate it. And I know there's a different path for everyone, but I do find it helpful to know that, other people have been there and, here are some ways or options you have to navigate it. And I think it's amazing the work you're doing at Blueprint. So I do hope folks reach out and take advantage of an opportunity to work with someone like yourself who has been, in their position before, in your own way and can guide people through the process of kind of figuring out what happens next. And I truly do hope we can have you on in a future episode to continue the conversation. But thank you so much for your time today. And I'm really glad we had a chance to chat.
Thanks, Imran. And I really appreciate your patience with me. I'm just so passionate. Even though the irony is, I said don't follow your passion, but I am very passionate about what I do and working with people to help them achieve their career goals. And so I get really excited about it. So thank you for your patience and thank you for having me on. And I really enjoyed chatting with you today, Imran.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny how, you kind of you gave us a realistic way to sort of make that passion part of what we're doing. So it's an interesting approach, and I'm glad it worked out the way you would hope it would for yourself, that you're doing something you're passionate about now. So again, thank you, Anne, for the insights, and have a great rest of your week. I really hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Imran. Have a great week.
You too. Bye.